Hi, it's James here from Hoxton Therapy. If you have any questions, anything you want to talk about at all, whether it's on psychoanalysis, depression, anxiety, or something else that isn't mentioned in this video, you can leave your questions on those topics in the comments section of this video. And we are going to be answering those questions in future up and coming videos, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. It might just be in the next video. So, what we're talking about now. We're talking about psychoanalysis. What is it? And all the things to do with psychoanalysis. So, that's coming up right after this.
So where does psychoanalysis come in? Where does... Well, if counselling and therapy are pretty much doing the same thing, what about psychoanalysis? What's that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question, because in a way that's where it all started, with Freud in the, 1895, he really started up. And psychoanalysis, to start with, there was no psychotherapy, there was only psychoanalysis. And what that entailed was what we might call the modern day counselling. But there's some significant things. Firstly, it's 5 times a week.
Oh yeah, psychoanalysis is 5
times a week. Yes, could you imagine that?
Oh no.
Yeah.
How long
could
can people spend in psychoanalysis?
A few years.
Wow.
Yeah, could you afford it?
Yeah, that's expensive.
You know, I mean, imagine say in London prices, £60 would be very cheap. £60 a session. For a psychoanalyst who's done a lot of training.
Yeah.
So, say they were moderately priced.
And why is it so often?
Well, I'll come to that.
Yeah.
But just imagine you're spending £500 a week.
Yeah.
Just on your therapy. So for a few years.
Yeah.
So and because when it grew up, psychoanalysis basically was for rich people in Vienna. And often,
that's where Freud's from, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and so often it was for the wives of rich businessmen and doctors and accountants.
You know, they can afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's the money aspect and the frequency.
Yeah.
You know, and then very significantly, the client is not called a client; they're called a patient. And lies down on a couch. They lie down full on with a cushion under their head, and the psychoanalyst sits behind the patient, so the patient can't see the.
So that's a real thing, because I wasn't sure if that really happened or not,
it
or if it's just a stereotype.
It's not a stereotype. No, it's probably become what people laugh at in cartoons.
Yeah,
you know, they see that in the cartoon that the psychoanalyst is writing, because the patient can't see the analyst, so doesn't know that he or she is writing. They were usually he to start with. Doesn't see that he's writing. Because if we were doing a counselling session here, I wouldn't be writing away. But, you know, we'd just be talking.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. I always thought. For this room, I always thought about a long couch. Yeah. Maybe I would lay down in it, and you would, the therapist.
But this has another thing with the psychoanalysis. The typical strict psychoanalyst never answers any questions. Doesn't say hello at the beginning, and doesn't say goodbye at the end. When the patient leaves silence or a gap. The analyst doesn't immediately start talking, although that happens in therapy too. But so you can imagine a patient says, "What are you thinking now?" to the analyst, and then silence comes back. You know, and so the patient experiences the analyst as quite remote.
Right.
And the idea is, and I guess it's really, I mean, I've never done this. I've never had the time and money to do all that. Not many people have. And it's not practiced much. But apparently it's been very successful in helping really unearth the subconscious fantasies, you know, of, like, just as an example, patients lying down, and it's talking about whatever they're talking about, their angry uncle or something, and then stops talking and says, "Are you," to the analyst? He says, "Are you still there?" And the analyst says nothing.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
And so then the patient thinks, "Shit, am I alone here?
Let me just check. Oh, you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're there. Have I been abandoned?" This is an example, because it might feel what nowadays we'd use the word weird or spooky.
Yeah.
It might feel weird or spooky or plain unsettling.
Yeah.
To be lying down thinking, I think there's someone else in the room that was half an hour ago.
Yeah.
He's not talking to me. The idea is it provokes a lot of...
Oh, like a trigger?
Trigger, yeah.
Oh, right.
So that's how it could be useful.
Looking for like abandonment issues?
For example. Yeah. Or it might be love, Yeah. It might be that the patient, through noticing their abandonment, notices the wish for love. And then might develop some kind of fantasy that the therapist loves them or the analyst loves them.
Yeah.
So psychoanalysis is very much about exploring fantasies, exploring the underworld of the client, which can be very disturbing, of course, but can also bring great relief because it's the stuff that comes up in dreams, in our subconscious. Psychoanalysis. So what happened was, after a few decades, people said, "Well, I want to do that, but I can't afford it. Or I can't afford the time and the money."
Yeah.
So they might say to the analyst, "Will you see me 3 times a week?" Okay, then, And then they might say, "Can you see me once a week?"
Yeah.
Yes, once a week. And the analyst might say, "Yeah, okay. It's better than nothing."
Right,
so it starts to be once a week.
So you can do it once a week?
Yeah.
Well, what? So
why
is it more beneficial for the 5 days?
Yes. Well, the once a week is then not called psychoanalysis.
Oh, well, therapy.
You're not allowed to call it psychoanalysis because it's only once a week.
Huh.
Okay. So then I'll just say a bit more about that and psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So if you've got so we've got this is like, say, the 1940s, 1950s, 60s. People going for once a week and not 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And you then start to get, in the history of the development of therapy, you start to get differences in the way that therapists act, the way that they are. So some psychotherapists will carry on having the kind of manner of the psychoanalyst. So they won't say hello at the start and they won't say goodbye. And at the end of the session...
Oh, the client will start doing that. Is that what you're saying?
No, the therapist won't say goodbye at the end of the session.
Because they're in the mode of psychoanalysis.
Yeah, so I value psychoanalysis even though it's once a week. So if I'm the therapist, at the end of the session, I'd say to you, it's time to stop.
Oh, and that's it. Wow.
And then I'd look at you and then do nothing.
Yeah.
And you'd get up out of the seat, and if you said goodbye, I wouldn't reply. And you'd just walk to the door and let yourself out.
Yeah. How do clients feel about that?
Well, I've had that.
Yeah.
And to start with, I hated it.
I thought, it does seem a bit odd.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Out of the ordinary, yeah.
But it stimulates, it provokes some of those things I was talking about earlier on, about those fantasies, the subconscious, our hidden desires and fears. So I might come back next week and say, "I thought you were really rude, not seeing me to the door." And then the therapist thinks, "Well, let's explore that."
Yeah.
what the therapist doesn't do is say sorry. Therapist says, well, I want to, let's talk more about how you felt about that. And then eventually the person might say, well, you just remind me of my grandmother. That's exactly what my grandmother did when...
And that's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
For them to say something like that.
Yeah. So the argument is that if I'm the therapist and I say, oh James, it's time to, or even worse, if I say, I'm really sorry, but it's time to stop. I'd never say that. But if I say, well, it's time to stop and show you to the door and say, have a good week, off we go. We keep it on the sort of social level then, and we kind of water down potentially the power of the therapeutic situation.
Wow, I never knew any of that. That's really interesting about the psychoanalysis. I didn't know it works like that. So, because it feels kind of cold, but I can see why they would do it. I mean,
I talked to someone, this is a friend I was talking to 25 years ago, and she said she saw someone who practiced like this, and it was just once a week, but he was very strict psychoanalytical, and she hated it. She didn't get a lot from it. She said, I hated going, I hated him, it was awful. Funny thing was, if I had to phone him up for some reason, he was really nice on the phone. But then in the sessions, I hated it. And so maybe it doesn't work for everyone, and maybe some psychoanalytic practitioners are more skilled than others. So anyway, back to the 1960s when people were then sitting in chairs once a week, and some people being strict analytic, which is what I was just describing. Another set of people, which is more how I am when I practice as a psychotherapist. Another set of people said, well, it's a really cold place, to come to. If your therapist never says hello, never says goodbye, and whenever you ask a question, like someone might say to me as a therapist, where did you go on holiday? And I never answer. I just say, what are you thinking?
Oh yeah.
So some clients or patients would hate that and wouldn't connect with the therapist.
Right.
And some can really use it. So then some therapists said, well, we're not going to be this cold remote figure.
Right.
We're going to be more like personable.
Hi, so I hope you enjoyed that video and you got something from it. If you didn't, leave a dislike or maybe even just like the video. But more importantly, if you've got a question on mental health, maybe it's not related to what you were just watching. Maybe there's something else that's been burning inside you for a long time that you just need answers on, but you can't go to therapy for whatever reason, then leave your question in the comment section below and we will try our best to answer your question, whether it's in written form in the comments, or maybe it's a short video on Instagram or a longer video on YouTube. Whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is you want to ask us, leave a comment below and we will try our best to answer your questions in future videos. So whatever you do, please like this video, comment if you liked it, leave a dislike if you didn't like it so we know if you didn't like it, and until next time, stay safe out there. It's like COVID-19 at the moment.